Hello, magical people of the internet. I am Jen, and welcome to my vlog, I Never Thought I Would, where we talk about doing things we never thought we would do and the fabulous places that they could lead us. I have such a fantastic guest today. Her name is Jennifer Louden. She is a #1 best-selling author, and she is a creativity mentor. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
How are you?
Today's a good day. Yeah, this moment is a good moment. One of the things I practice asking myself is, what am I bringing into this moment that I don't need here?
Ah,
So I don't. So when I do that, I'm like, yeah, this is a good moment right now. Get to be in conversation with you, talk about some important stuff.
mm-hmm. I love the way you phrase that. Of what to leave out of the moment.
And
As
what am I
opposed
bringing into the moment that I don't need here? I mean,
to
it's usually like an entire,
weeks worth of
train
stuff.
worth of stuff, tractor
Yeah.
trailer after tractor trailer.
But the way you phrased it, because I feel like so much of my time these days, I'm like working on being mindful, working on being positive, working on bringing energy, working on things like that. And there's just something lovely about omitting
There is, because it
because it
can.
sounds like, oh, one less thing to do.
Yes, we rely too much on our minds. The smarter we are, and I know everyone listening is very, very smart, and we rely so much on our minds. And I like to try to rely more on my body.
That is also another gem right there. Yes, it's true because we're always overthinking. And it's funny because when it comes to like the really, really big decisions, we do finally listen to our body.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. But if we're having a visceral reaction to
Mm.
something, if it's something minor, a lot of times we don't really pay attention to it. But when it's for the bigger issues in life, that's when we have to kind of tune into that station and be like, oh, what's going on over here? Okay.
Yeah, and
Duly noted.
I think too, and this is just my experience, that trying to think my way into mindfulness, really, it takes so much effort. And it feels a lot of times like I'm fighting myself.
Mhm.
But my body is actually always here. And I often say the body is the fastest way in. And when I work with creatives of all kinds and writers and painters and everybody, we have to make it safe to create. And the more that we put pressure on ourselves or time anxiety about our creations, the higher our threat defense response rises, right? So that's your fight, flight, freeze.
Mhm.
And the more we begin to associate creating, which was once upon a time a joyful thing, an interesting thing, an engaging thing, with being at risk, being in danger. And
Mhm.
that actually shuts down the parts of our brain that we need to be creative, and makes us procrastinate. And then we blame procrastination and ourselves, and we think we're weak and undisciplined, when in fact we've just gotten into this cycle of freaking ourselves out without even being aware of it. So the body is one of the great ways out of that.
Yeah, and I think the creative process is something that does not want to be results oriented.
No, it doesn't, unless you're near the end of a project. So what the research shows is when you're near the end of a project, it's motivating to
Mhm.
see the finish line. It reminds me of, I'm a runner, and it reminds me of like, oh yeah, I can see the finish line. Yes. But then when I'm in the middle of the race, or, a trail run for the day, and, cranking up that mountain, and it's the way out, right? And I'm not on the return yet. Or my husband says, Jenny likes to get back to the barn. I always go faster on the return. It's very demotivating to have the goal in mind. And when we over process and over focus on the goal, we actually lose energy, and we can increase that fear level. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that I found for myself in my writing
Mhm.
too. I don't like to pressure myself. Of course, there are certain deadlines and
Mhm.
there's a certain structure that you need to be mindful of, but I try my very, very best to just be in the flow as much as possible and, you know, be gentle with myself. I notice when I'm more gentle with the process just loves me that much more.
Yeah, beautifully said.
So, You have a story for us today about doing something you never thought you would do. I'm sure you've done many things you've never thought you would do, but why don't we talk about this particular one and where it led you and how it opened up some aspect of your life that you didn't realize it would?
Yeah, I moved from Bainbridge Island near Seattle to Colorado to Boulder County about 5.5 years ago. And there's a whole long story behind this. But I decided when I moved here, I would be a yes to everything.
Ooh.
So I said yes to a running walking group, thinking, well, I hike almost every day. So great. Yeah, that'll be fun. And it'll be a great way to meet some people. But when I got there that night, there was only one walker, and she walked a lot slower than I am, and slower than I do. And one of the things that is very true about me is I move fast, I talk fast, I do things fast. So, and I wanted to get my exercise, right? So, but I didn't want to walk off and leave her. So I said, you know what, Kelly, I think I'll try this running thing, which is like, runners, you are so silly. It's so painful. And why do you do that? And when I see you running, I just think it looks like torture. That's what I told myself my whole life. So I took off running, and we live at about 5,000 feet. So it was like running, and ran for a few hundred yards and stopped and walked and ran. And then I fell in love with it that night. But here's the really cool part of the story. It was with a group that had a coach who's become a dear friend, and she's a neighbor, Jabe. And when I was done, Jabe said, "Oh, you're a runner." And I looked at her, I said, "Jabe, what the? No, I'm not. I ran tonight." And she said, "No, you're a natural runner." And I think one of the things that I do as a mentor and that we can all do for each other as humans is see each other, witness each other. And that moment of witnessing opened up this whole possibility of being part of a community, of doing hard things, of having adventures. Eventually, a few weeks later, my husband joined. He is now an obsessive runner. He's running ultras. And, I went on to run my first half marathon in Moab a few months later. And just the hardness of running, especially at elevation, especially on trails, has taught me I can do hard things. And it's
Hmm.
given me a tremendous amount of confidence. I will say right now, I have a piece of metal in my knee that's sticking out from a very old surgery. So I'm going to a surgeon tomorrow to have that removed, not having surgery and getting it all scheduled tomorrow. So I'm not running right now, but I look
Oh,
forward to having the surgery and being able to get back to it, not have a piece of metal sticking into my IT band.
oh my God.
Yeah, it's actually, I'm really delighted that they found it because I didn't know what was the matter, and I would run and my knee would blow up. So, yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So thank God they found what's going on and you'll get it
Yes.
all taken care of.
Yeah, I'm sure anyone listening who's had physical things that are mysterious knows the great relief that I talk about when something is specific and solvable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely understand. I've had an unsolvable like shoulder problem for half a decade now. And
I've
it's
had that
very
with my back.
frustrating when you know there's something wrong
Yeah,
and the doctors are like, but there's nothing there.
I do.
And
I know
mine
very
turned out
well.
to be an energetic thing. And I went to an energy healer. And within our first session, he was able to pinpoint it.
Fantastic. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And like link it back to like something emotional that happened. And I was just like, oh, wow, you're my new hero.
No, it's so true. I love the people who've been able to help me with those things in my life. I'm sure I'm going to love this surgeon.
Yeah. Well, because when you're helpless, there's nothing worse than being in pain. And when it's physical pain that's not validated, it's
Hmm.
it's really challenging. Like
It's
when
true.
doctors are doing imaging and saying like there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, and you're like, but I know there is.
It's one of the things we can do, that go back to that witnessing and validating each other. It's so important. It's such an essential part of what I do every day for people. And we can all do it for each other. It's really such a gift, even if it's just seeing someone, seeing a homeless person and being willing to look them in the eye. If it's willing to say to a friend, like when you were in pain with your shoulder, I get it. It hurts. I
Mhm.
think that we so often rush into fixing or solving or over empathizing and kind of, flooding the other person with our desire to help. And it's very different to stand in our own body and our own space and our own tenderness and witness each other. That's one of the things I do on my retreats a lot that people always report is very powerful.
Well, why don't you tell us about your retreats?
Oh, sure. Well, last year I didn't lead one because there was this thing called COVID, but we're hoping by fall we have two retreats scheduled. One, I do a lot of writing retreats, and I do a lot of like get your bother on. I do retreats based on my latest book, Why Bother, and discover the desire for what's next. And really, there is an archetypal process that people go through when they're in a why bother phase. You know, it may not be about your whole life. It may be about your work or your health or your relationships, or maybe about your whole life. And there's an archetypal process, and a retreat can just juice it. You know, it can bring you to what is called a state change. So you realize, oh, there is a way out of this. This is not who I am. This is normal, and I can move through this. And then that allows you to go back in your life and create the practices that will make it a stage change, will make it real and stable in your life. So I find retreats can be very powerful for popping people back into possibility and refreshment and desire.
And do you think that's because we see other people go through their own transformation
I
out
think
of
there, yeah, I think there's a few reasons. One, to use the word archetype again, there is an archetype of retreats, and I studied it for my fourth book, the Woman's Retreat book. And when we activate that archetype, when the leader, or we can do it for ourselves, does this, it's very powerful. I think it taps into pre-conscious, pre-verbal, beyond cultural restriction feelings and ways of knowing. And so that, I think there's a lot in that container and that process. I think the second thing is exactly when we are companioned well by others, by a leader, we do feel less alone. We normalize so many things that we pathologize because of our culture. Our culture is always teaching us that if we don't do X, Y, and Z, there's something wrong with us. And if we're in a why bother time, oh my God, that's just through the roof, right? I'm so ungrateful. Why do I feel this way? Why did this happen to me? It doesn't happen to anybody else. I should know what I want to do next. I should have more energy or more desire. We've been in a collective why bother because of COVID. It's been incredibly hard. So, yes, I think it is seeing other people and normalizing it. And then you're out of your ordinary life, which is sometimes just enough to make you remember that life never gives up on you. It's right there beckoning you forward.
hmm And I think the way you put it is like getting away from your own life. It's amazing how 1 or 2 nights away from home in a different environment, surrounded by a different group of people where generally they don't really know you. So there's no judgments, there's no preconceived, like, oh, this is so and so, and she's X, and, this is her job, and she has this many kids. And,
Hmm.
because we are so many times defined by our roles in life, not by necessarily who we are or what new role we want to assume.
Absolutely. Just spend time with your family.
Yeah, and it's true. And people, unfortunately, people love to tell us what we can't do, especially ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah, I call that, I didn't make up this term, emotional immune system. And
Mhm.
we're not built to take risks as humans. It's not built into our brain or our nervous system. And again, we pathologize that. We normalize people who are risk takers. We normalize people, some of whom have just literally different genetic makeup. Uh, and we forget that taking risks, our brain interprets it as death, that we're
Mm.
going to die through humiliation, through failure, through maybe physical death. It just depends. And we have to learn to work with that. We have to learn to find ways to push that immune system out a little bit more, make it a little bit bigger, a little bit more robust. It's never going to go away. We don't want it to go away. We need it. We need that to go, okay, that's weird. This situation is weird. Okay, I'm not comfortable here. I'm not getting in that elevator. I'm not getting in that car. I'm not going to that party. I'm not staying at whatever it is. I'm not staying in this meeting. I'm not letting myself be treated this way. But we also have to realize that our emotional immune system is constantly saying, don't want that. Don't connect with that person that way. Don't write those words because you're going to die if you do.
Mm, that's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about your book, Why Bother? Because I think that would be getting into the kind of the crux of this.
Yeah, I write about the emotional immune system and how you can create little tiny experiments, not to disprove it, but to expand it. So yeah, so Why Bother came to me after I spent 4 years writing a memoir that didn't work. I had the terrible moment when a friend who's a great book coach read it for me and said, nah, it's not working. And then I wrote another book proposal from it with her coaching, and my agent said no to it, and their whole agency said no to it. And then out of the ashes of both of those books, luckily the second one, the book proposal, only took a few months versus the memoir that I gave 4 years to, arose this question of why bother? That I heard clients and friends saying. This was before COVID, obviously. Why bother? Why bother to keep loving? Why bother to try to write again when my last book got turned down? Why bother to build a business when I had so much success, but that business has been sold or over, but I'm not dead yet, but do I have what it takes? Do I have the burning desire to start another business? Why bother? You name it. We all experience it's too late. I'm too old. I should have done it 5 years ago. Who am I? We don't actually say why bother very often, Jen. We usually say something like that, like it's too old and I'm too old. It's too late. I don't have the energy. And so I was really curious about how my experiences writing the memoir, I saw these stories of these moments when why bother would come to me. And instead of walking into it, instead of really genuinely asking the question, what do I want to bother about? What do I care about now? How have I changed and grown into this moment? How can I enter into the unknown and be here asking and discovering and experimenting instead of running right away to making the plan? I saw how I did it over and over again in my life. And when I didn't fully go into that why bother process, I always reverted to, okay, this will be enough. This will be good enough. I can do this again. I always went backwards. And so, yeah, so I wanted to write about it and try to give stories of mine, other people's, and some tools, but more of a story roadmap to help you see that, yes, you will bother again, but you have to be willing to go in and muck around.
Yeah, and also maybe you're not going to bother with the same things as before.
Oh, no, you rarely are. And that freaks our emotional immune system out too, right? I had a client once who she has really successful family business and she was getting ready to retire. It was time for her to pass the baton on. And she had been super driven and super successful. She was in her mid 50s and she wanted to write. And she said to me, and I write about this in the book, I think, really genuinely, but what if I'm not good at it? Because I've been so good at my business. And I've been so rewarded with money, with my family's appreciation, with our community loves me. And I'm like, yeah, that's the question, right? Are you willing to go into being not good, not having that outcome we were talking about earlier? No, no, it's not guaranteed. Is it going to bring you alive? Is it an interesting enough pursuit? And maybe you don't know, because that's the thing we do. We want guarantees. We want the plan. We want to know where we're going to end up. And that keeps us in why bother just as much as thinking there's nothing to bother about again.
Definitely. And I would have to say, especially in the creative process, and with technology becoming so accessible, anyone can write a book. And now there's more books available than ever. Anyone can make a movie or make a video, put it on YouTube. So as much as things are so much more accessible, at the same time, there's so much more of the why bother, because the market is that much more saturated. And we really have to take stock of, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is it fun? Do I enjoy it? And for me, working on projects, fun is a big thing.
For me, it's biting into it. Like, am I
Mhm.
interested in biting into this problem, this question? There's often a real itchiness and intensity for me. Sometimes it's fun for sure too, but
Mhm.
it's not, there's not a lot of ease around a lot of that, but it's like am I excited to get up in the morning and do it? Yeah. Am I like,
Yeah.
"Rawr."
Well, definitely. And that's why it has to be fun for me because it's not ease. I'll be married to a project for a decade sometimes.
Mhm.
My last short film fell through 6 times in 10 years. And for some reason, I don't know how, it kept bubbling up to the top of the pile, to the top of the pile. And people who had read it years ago would ask me, like, whatever happened with that? What did you ever do? And it's amazing how literally a decade later, the project was still with me. There was still interest, but also as a producer and working on film sets, we're working a minimum of a 12-hour day. A lot of
Mhm.
times it's an 18-hour day. If
Yeah.
you're not excited to jump out of bed at 4:30 in the morning and come meet me at 5:30 a.m., like, don't come. I want somebody, I'm excited to be here to do what we're going to do. And I want everybody else who's there to be excited in their role. And luckily, thus far, I've been able to collaborate with people, whether it's for writing projects, film, theater, productions. Like, I've been able to always find a great team of people.
That's great. I actually went to film school to be a filmmaker, went to USC, and
Oh,
that would,
incredible.
yeah.
Mm.
And that collaborative process is why I went. But then when I actually got into it, I realized I'm a much more of a lone creator, that I
Mhm.
like being in my little cave here and getting to create things. But every now and then I think, what would it be like to go back to that? And what would it be like to create with other people again? I bet it would be really fun. So who knows?
Yeah, you know what? It is so much fun. And I thought I was kind of more of a loner as well. And just about 10 years, not even 10 years ago, my first writing partner approached me and asked me to write something with her. And I never thought I would, because I was like, yeah, I'm a writer. I don't need a partner. Like, I didn't realize, like, oh, wait, it could add more joy, more fun, more resources. Oh, wait a second. It's not about needing a partner. It's about things being so much more fun with a partner.
Oh,
And
that's
it was
great.
perfect timing too, because I had just done 2 one-woman shows, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm never doing that again.
and
Never
I,
gonna be the one woman again."
yeah, I love that declaration too, because that's very important for creatives. I'm not doing that. I'm done with that. I'm letting that go. And I see so many people having trouble with that, choosing. And one of the things I say over and over again is choosing is our art. Choosing is the first part of being an artist of life.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like, all of the incredible actors out there say that, like, your talent is in your choice.
Hmm.
Every actor, we get the same lines for every audition. How come this person can do it this way and this person can do it that way? Choices.
I love that.
Choices. That's amazing. So where do we find Why Bother? And you have several other books as well. I'm sure we can all find them in close proximity to each other.
Yeah, well, some of them, the way books get shelved, but you can find Why Bother in any bookstore, online, any place you want. And I did a guided journal to go with it, which stands alone. If you're more of a journaler than a reader, it's called Get Your Bother On, and you can find that only online. It is not in bookstores because it's print on demand. And some of my other books that you could find, The Life Organizer, um, the Woman's Retreat book, yeah, you can find them anywhere books are sold.
Great. Excellent. And what if people want to find you and work with you directly as a creativity mentor? How do they do that?
Yeah, just go to jenniferlouden.com and you can get a free chapter of the Why Bother book there to check it out. jenniferlouden.com and click around and you'll find lots of cool stuff.
Perfect. Well, we will have all the links below to make it easy for everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat today, Jennifer. I really appreciate it.
Me too, Jen. Thank you so much.
Yes, well, have a beautiful day. And everyone out there, I'd like to challenge you to do something you never thought you would do because you never know where it will lead you. Let us know what it is in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a beautiful day.